if you focus on like offering the best benefits and paying higher salaries and you attract A talent and you hire A talent, the productivity in your firm is going to shoot up substantially.
One, two, three, four.
Welcome to the Automated Lawyer Podcast. I am one of your hosts, John Fritz, and I'm joined with my co-host, Dan Schnirbush. Dan, what's going on today?
Oh, John, it has been an interesting morning. We were sick over the weekend, and when my family gets sick, it is an ordeal because we have 4 kids. So when one person gets sick, then the next person gets sick, and the next person, and the next person, and it goes through like a cycle. And it usually takes 4 or 5 weeks before everybody is perfectly clean. But this weekend we were barreled in and playing video games and blowing our noses and burning through tissue boxes. But today I'm feeling pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. Had a nice weekend. Spent a lot of time playing with my kids. Took my daughter to buy her first set of golf clubs, so that was fun. She's decided she wants to learn how to play golf, and
Nice.
I love playing golf, but never have the time. So if I can bring one of my kids, then it's a great experience. So I'm excited about today and our guest, our good friend Tyson Mutrux. And do you want to do a little intro, Dan, and we'll kind of get started?
Yeah, I will do a little intro. So, Tyson is somebody that I think I've mentioned this to him before, but he and Jim Hacking through Maximum Lawyer are the reason that I started a law firm in the first place. I found the podcast their podcast, Maximum Lawyer podcast, when I was at my old firm, and I would listen to it every single day to and from work, just soaking it all in. I have hundreds of pages of notes from the episodes that I listened to. Trying to get ready for what software am I going to use? How am I going to do this? How am I going to deal with leadership and not scaling and just vision and mindset and getting all that stuff straight. And I did that for months and months and months before I finally decided to jump. So I'm delighted to introduce Tyson Mutrux here today as our guest, where we're going to talk about all things related to him and technology and the hiring process and automating and all the fun stuff that we usually do. But welcome Tyson, owner of Mutrix Injury Firm and one of the principals of the Maximum Lawyer Organization. Welcome, Tyson.
Thanks, guys, for having me. I'm like I told you before, I'm really excited about doing this. This is a lot of fun.
Great. Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Tyson, how did you tell us a little about your story? So you run Mutrix Injury Firm, you've got a hand in Maximum Lawyer, and presumably, I don't know what else, some other things, but tell us a little bit about your story. How'd you get into law and starting your own business, and what was that jump like early on?
So I'll try to tell the story because I can turn this into a really long story, and I'll try to condense it because I want to make sure we get into we have a lot of topics we want to talk
Sure.
about. So I had always wanted to go to law school. My parents, so neither one of them graduated from high school, right? And it was funny because whenever sometimes I get emotional when I tell the story, so I'll try not to. But I remember though when my dad was like in his mid-30s, where he went back and got his GED, right? And like how like a big deal it was, and it's just so weird thinking back now, like how big of a deal that was to us. Like, he went back and got his GED, like it was just a weird thing. But so they've been business owners. He started his own business later on, and he's a mechanic, so he started his own garage and everything. Well, I never really thought it was in the cards, right, to become a lawyer. I didn't think it was something that I'd be able to afford to do. I didn't understand how student loans worked and all that stuff. But then when I joined the Army, there was a guy that was in law school whenever we were in the reserves, got activated. And I talked to him quite a bit. He was going to University of Missouri for law school. And so, we had some good conversations. But I remember there was this guy that I talked to quite a bit. So my unit we mobbed troops, right? So what that means is that reserve units would come through our unit. They would get mobilized. We would get them ready with all their immunizations, draw their blood. They would go through a bunch of training. That's what our unit did. And then they would go, and then they'd come back. And I remember one time he came back earlier than his unit, and I was asking why. We'd been playing basketball at night. That's kind of how we connected. And the guy was missing like a big part of his foot, right? I was like, holy hell! It was like just so like eye opening. So it was like one of those moments where you're like, holy crap. Like I have no excuses. So I went home that night and started researching law schools and I was like, okay, I just made the decision. I'm going to do it. A big part of it, and I think I put this on my bio on our website where I had a debate teacher that she'd put a lot of confidence in me, saying that she's like, you're a really good debater. You should really like think about going to law school. So like, there's like those, few moments in life where kind of like it nudges you in the way that you should go. And then, so I went to law school and it was interesting. I don't know if you all had the same experience, but when I first started, I was thinking like, well, maybe this is not for me. Like this is not what I thought it was going to be. This is way different. And then, and I can't remember if it was the first semester, I'm sorry, first class of second semester or the first class of the second year. I just cannot remember. Is when I took trial ed. And so I think it might have been the first class of our 2L year where Tom Stewart, he comes in and he calls it cold and bold. I don't know if you all had Tom Stewart,
Yep.
but he comes in, does cold and bold, and he does this opening statement. And it was like, I'm here. This is where I'm supposed to be. It was like this moment, right? So, but I knew whenever I was in law school that I wanted to start my own business. It was just something that I knew I wanted to do. It was kind of eye opening to me how ego driven the marketing is when it comes to attorneys as opposed to like client focused. I have a marketing degree and what they teach you is like everything's about the customer. Like you focus, everything's designed around the customer. And I found it to be so backwards when it comes to like what we do as lawyers. And so I knew that there was a weak spot that we could capitalize on. And so in a nutshell, that's kind of how I got started in it. I had a little bit of the fire entrepreneurial spirit, I guess, for my parents, because they had my mom owned a daycare whenever I was younger. So she owned a business. My dad started his garage. So it was just kind of, in the family. So it's something that we had I knew I wanted to do. And that I will tell you that helped me focus quite a bit on like taking the classes I needed to take, like ignoring the classes that I didn't need to take. So like having that focus early on actually helped me quite a bit.
So
Tell me a little bit about the start to the Maximum Lawyer and kind of what kind of spurred that creation. And it's obviously evolved immensely from when you started and kind of gone to this next level of helping other lawyers. But what kind of created that for you guys?
That comes from it actually started in law school. So Jim, the podcast didn't start in law school, but the relationship with Jim's, for those of you that don't know, Jim Hacking, he's my podcast partner. And we've been doing this for 8 years. It was interesting back then. I think we both thought we were kind of late to the podcasting game. Like that was 8 years ago, which is kind of odd to think about it. But he was my law practice management professor in law school. And we connected. He knew that I wanted to, he was running his own firm. He knew I wanted to own my own firm. So we chatted a lot. We stayed in touch after law school. And we always talked quite a bit to the point where like we're just talking weekly basis at a minimum. I would go over to his office. He'd come over to my office. We would chat quite a bit. We had even at one point like put together like a little mastermind. It wasn't something that anybody paid for. It was 8. I think it was like 8 of us from different businesses. Jim and I were the only lawyers. And so like we were really business focused. And then we just said, let's do a podcast. And because we were talking quite a bit and there were a lot of false starts. I'll tell you that there were a lot of great episodes that we forgot to hit the record button on. Things were a lot different. We were using, what was that phone service that you could call through back like 8 years ago? It was like, I think the color was like teal. It was like a teal color. Do you all remember what I'm talking about? Jim remembers the name of it, but I don't remember the name of it.
I do not.
But it was like Skype. It was called Skype.
Oh.
So I don't know if you remember. Yeah. So we would record, we downloaded this. Actually, it was only on one of our computers. So I downloaded it onto my computer. And if I forgot to hit the record button, we would have this Skype call and it would not get recorded. So it was pretty bad. So we went through quite a few iterations, but that's how it started. We were just like, hey, like that was a cool conversation. We should have recorded that. And so we, we started recording it, and then, I guess the rest is history.
There you go. And it grew, right? Because I mean, the Facebook group now has, I don't know what, thousands and thousands of people in there. And every day people are asking questions and getting answers to important stuff, not just on technology, but on just how to start a firm, how to be a decent boss, or, deal with difficult employees, and these sorts of resources. Bringing back to tech for a minute, like Facebook has been just an invaluable resource for me. And for anybody out there who's listening and thinking about starting their practice, like, get on Facebook. Even if you don't want to be there for like the political fights and the garbage and trash that you see on there, get into the groups, look for people that are like-minded and trying to pursue things that you are. There are so many wonderful communities out there for sharing and learning, especially for lawyers, with, Lawyer on the Beach and Maximum Lawyer, and of course the Legal Tech Collective Facebook group where we talk exclusively about tech. But just a
It's
lot
not
of
just for old people.
That's right. That's right. So Maximum Lawyer has grown, and your firm has grown. How many people do you have at Mutrix Injury Firm now?
It's funny. It's always changing because we're constantly hiring. I think we're at 18, and which is less. It's about 10 less than about 2 years ago.
Really?
Because we made a concerted effort to we decided to spend more money on A players, and I'm gonna say this, and people that are just starting out, you're gonna find this really hard to believe, but I promise you, and I'm sure that there are studies on this, that if you focus on like offering the best benefits and paying higher salaries, and you attract A talent and you hire A talent, the productivity in your firm is going to shoot up substantially. Like, it is not even close. So what we did is we had intentional turnover where we would there's something called top grading. It's based on a book. I highly recommend anyone read it. If you plan on hiring anybody, I highly recommend it. We've really shaped our entire hiring process around top grading. But so we had intentional turnover where we knew it was going to be painful. And we were successful then, we're successful now, but we wanted to get to that next level. So we're shifting into a national firm, a national brand, where we were before just more of a regional, and we knew that we needed the people to get there. So we had this intentional turnover, and it was painful because we had people that were with us from, near the beginning that, self-selected out for the most part. There were a few that we had to, let go, but I'm putting that nicely. Yeah. But it's something that it took some time, and so we consolidated, and we had our best month in 3 years, or I'm sorry, our best quarter in 3 years last quarter, and we're on pace to beat that this quarter. Yeah. So it's just something that we focused on systems, and we focused on getting the best people, and it's made a substantial difference, because what happens is that you'll get a lot of bloat as you grow. So you get a lot of bloat, and it's because it's more comfortable to do it that way. Well, I'll just add another person. I'll add another person instead of really doing some reflecting and deep digging. Okay, where are we weak here? Where are we weak there? And the most difficult thing you have to do is you have to cut people. Sometimes you have to cut tools, you have to cut resources, but you have to do it for the better. And that's something that you have to make those tough decisions. And that's a long way to answer the question, but I think it's important because we focus way too much on size of firm. Yeah. We focus way too much, where it's one of those things I call those ego numbers, right? You got revenue is an ego number. Yep. The number of people you have is an ego number. They mean very little, right? Because you could have a ton of revenue, but you could be suffering a substantial loss. Yeah. Okay. That revenue doesn't mean anything. Profit is what matters. Profit is what matters. That matters more than anything else is profit. Yeah. And the number of people you have, it whatever gets you the best results. That's what matters.
Could not agree more. I've hired several, people over the last few years. It's funny. Last time we were on a podcast together, Tyson, I was on the verge of bankruptcy and running out of money and couldn't get a single client. And I was freaking out. You may remember that. But fast forward,
I do remember.
what is it, 4 years now, and very, very different place, and gone through several employees now. And you could not be more correct that there is just a chasm of productivity difference between somebody who is an A player and somebody who is not. It is incredible, and it is profound. And the amount of work that can get done, and the volume, and the effect that it has on your profitability can be ridiculous, especially when you pair it with really powerful automation technology, which is, of course, my bailiwick, or my favorite area to get into.
And so Tyson, obviously you went from 28 or 24 people, I think 28 down to 18. It's a significant reduction in people. What sort of role did tech and systems play as part of a supplement to kind of that transition?
I would say substantial. For a variety of reasons, and if you're listening to this podcast, you don't have this reservation about automation that a lot of people do. It's an odd thing because what a lot of people don't realize is that automation is something that allows you to serve people better. And usually what people think is I don't know if usually is really the right way of putting it. It used to be usually that's what people think. I'll say many people still think, and a lot of them attorneys, that you're using automation, that means you're replacing people, or you're replacing customer service with some sort of automation. No, you're improving your customer service. It's a supplement to it. You are taking all that mundane stuff that can be done by automation, and so that's done by computers now, and it allows more time and freedom for the employees that you've hired, the actual people, to reach out to your clients and take care of your clients and answer their questions. So that's why I think it's an odd thing, but it's quite a bit. It was a big deal. I think that the people part, at least in that transition for us, the bigger part was the focusing on the people. But we did, and we can talk about this whenever you want. Like we automated the hiring process, which is something we had not done previously, which it helped us move faster on hiring people. Because when you have this massive turnover that you're intentionally doing, you have to be hiring very, very quickly. And we have a long hiring process. Like ours is about 2 to 3 months. So it's a very long hiring process. So you have to be, you have to find a way to make sure that that's firing on all cylinders, because when you have such a long hiring process, staying in touch with the candidate is extremely important, because otherwise they'll go take a job somewhere else. If they know that they're still in the running, then a lot of times the A players will hold out if they think that your place is the right place to be. But there is also in conjunction with this, we also had a massive system haul over, or whatever overhaul. A haul over is not the right word. Overhaul, systems overhaul, where we used a lot of Cal Newport's book, A World Without Email. Or anyone that's not read it, if you like systems, read the freaking book. It's not really about email. It's about really squeezing the most out of your work. And so we reconfigured a lot of systems when it comes to, what should be on a screen at any given time, and everything. And everyone's got 2 monitors. We can talk about 2 monitors, the importance of that. If your employees don't have 2 monitors, you're crazy. Because I can tell you, we have data, like the data shows if you have 2 monitors, it skyrockets productivity. But that being said, what we've tried to do is get everything onto one screen, all the information that they need to do a task on one screen. And we did a lot of research, and we also took a lot of time to design what it should look like, because we built out our own system through Zoho. And that took a lot of time to design that, to make sure that it's effective. And so to answer your question, systems were a massive part. Automation was a massive part of it. But I do think, honestly, the bigger part of that transition was the people part of it.
And what I've seen is just that there's just this combination between an A player with good systems, because now you're taking somebody who's already disproportionately productive to begin with, and then equipping them with tools that lets them just race wherever they need to go. If it would have taken that same person, time to send out a letter or whatever, and you can automate that process, and they're there to be the one to push the button. It is critical, because I know there was a portion for our period for us where I was building these amazing automated systems, and we didn't have anybody who was reliably pushing the buttons, right? So the system would work well, but only if somebody was there to execute on it. And usually that person is not me. I am not the best executor. I am more of a thinker and a dreamer and a building fun things and going off on crazy wild goose chases. But I need people to do things for me and push the buttons. And now that I have people that push the buttons for me at a very high level, it is game changing. So it's great to hear about how.
Can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah, go.
Can we talk about the buttons? Okay. So I have strong feelings about this. That's why I want to talk about it. So I warned them that I like to shift a lot in my seat, so I'm shifting as I'm talking. But what happens is that, and I bet you two have done this. I've done this. You build out this overly complicated system with lots of buttons, and people don't know what buttons to push because you've not taught them, or you've forgotten how this particular system works, because you just made it way too complicated. Simpler is better. Err on the side of removing buttons and removing fields. And if it's something that it's a nice to have, but not a need to have, I err on the side of removing it, because if it's like something you're going to use like once a year, you don't need it. Okay. You don't need it. And so, because otherwise it's going to overcomplicate things. So I wanted to point that out, because if you think you're going to build out this massive grand system, that sounds amazing. It sounds really cool, but it's better in theory than it is in practice, because people, you want to make their jobs easier. And what you've done is, usually when you've made it really complicated, you've complicated their jobs. You have to think about it from the user's perspective. Okay. So you are almost like you're a software engineer, where you're designing this thing for a user, and your user is your employee. And when you're designing it, it needs to be super easy for them, super simple for them, so that way they can do their job more efficiently. So I have strong feelings on that. I just want to make sure I made that clear.
Definitely. Yeah. I remember when I first started my practice, and I started in Lawmatics, and we still have Lawmatics, but I automated just about every single thing. And as soon as, a case came through that didn't perfectly fit the automation scheme, everything broke. And then another case came in that didn't fit, and everything broke again. And I was like, okay, let's pull back a little bit. And so we ended up undoing a bunch of automation and then simplifying a lot of the way that things had to be executed. And it definitely helped a lot in that sense. And we've shifted that way too, of trying to consolidate things into single interfaces, because when you have to go to tons of different places, we use this tool for that, and this tool for that, and this tool for that, it can get very complicated and messy. And like you said, it kills the user experience. It kills those productivity gains that they could have been had if now you have to get a PhD in Mutrix injury firm software before you can actually do your job correctly. So I totally hear you.
Yeah. So John, I know you have a question. I just want to one way for us that we've looked at it is I want to make sure I finish the thought, because other people, people might clip this like, he says you should make it a DIY. That's not what I'm saying. So I want to make sure I'm giving that caveat. We look at it from the perspective of, if this were a completely DIY setup where the client is doing everything, how would we set this up? So that's kind of how we've designed it, so that it's more efficient for our employees. So they're not as hands-on as they were before. So a lot of the stuff can be done by a client. That way it's more efficient. But it's also done with in mind that we're moving the cases faster for the client. And then also it's freeing up the employee's time, so they can actually communicate directly with the client. That's the whole purpose of it. So we're not designing this thing as a DIY just so the client does all the work. We're actually doing it more as a DIY. So we're more of a customer service based firm. And that's why we're doing it. And so that's our little mindset shift for anyone that's kind of struggling with that, is, okay, how could we design this so it's DIY? And then that way you can, so you're supplementing what your people are doing. And then that's going to free up your people's time to actually deal with the clients and give that more customer service based firm that you should probably focus on.
Yeah, I love that approach, and I know that Dan and I try to use that approach as much as possible when it comes to our probate practices, right? And my law firm does only probate work, and Dan has a big probate presence. But what can we push into the client's lap to have them kind of do on their own to help free things up? But along to your point, when it comes to systems creation and design, whatever you design on paper is like we said, is not the most effective way. And what I found that is talking to the actual people who are going to be using the product at the end, my paralegal or my file clerk who's going to be actually doing the work. Oh, this is too complicated. Like, this should be on one screen. Like, there's too many tasks in this task flow. It should be one task. Like, I'm spending too much time on this or that. Constantly getting that feedback has been really helpful from my systems building as well.
Love it. Yeah. To me, I think estate planning is like the dream practice area to automate. I just think you could do so much with it. I think it's just a dream. Because you do. I mean, you have contingencies, but you don't have like a mass amount of contingencies like you have in litigation. Like now, if you do probate and all that, then yeah, you're going to have the same issues. But there are so many things that happen with litigation that it's hard to kind of plan for all of them.
Yeah. No, that's true.
100%.
Planning is definitely amenable to, especially the document preparation portion of it is definitely amenable to quite a bit of automation, and we have a lot of fun with that. But what I've actually found is for me at least, the probate side from a tech perspective is more entertaining because there's more untapped, there's more areas that people have not exploited that other firms are not bothering to spend the time to automate. And when you figure out how to tap into that, and I don't know, this may or may not be the same with litigation, but when you do figure out how to tap into the automation of that thing, there's almost nobody else doing that. So it enables a certain arbitrage opportunity that I feel a lot of people are already doing in estate planning. But you're right. It can be a very efficient practice. I think it was I heard some guy in a Facebook group saying they got their draft prep time down to like 8 minutes or something like that because of the way they had automated their estate documents.
That's fantastic. I love it.
Great.
I get it now. Okay, now the next challenge. What does it take to get it down to 6 minutes? Like that's like the game you play, right? We're like, okay, I'm at 8. Now I want to get to 6, and then like it's that's. I mean, I think that's what's fun about it.
Yep. Like,
Tyson, are you using any sort of document automation or any sort of automation when it comes to the actual production of documents as part of your injury law firm, or no?
I mean, we do. Yeah, like we have. I mean, if you're talking like just regular document, like letters, pleadings. Yeah, we have lots of pleadings that we use that are generated. We have lots of. Discovery requests. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if there's a document that we don't at least start off with some sort of doc gen. So yeah, we quite a bit. What I'm excited about is like, what are we going to be able to do with AI, over the next, few years? You know what I mean? Like where it's not just doc gen, you doc gen it, but it's also been drafted based on certain specifications with certain case law. I mean, like the things that are going to happen over the next 3 years are just going to be mind-boggling. Mind-boggling.
Have you started integrating AI into your existing firm in any significant way?
We have. I was pretty ticked off. By the way, I'm going to say this, and we don't have it done yet. Okay. But I was pretty ticked off when ChatGPT came out because we were already dealing with, there was a very large corporation so Kashif is our CTO. Kashif is our CTO, and he's friends with some people that work for a very large corporation who had been testing out AI. And they were working on building out a software for us. What it would do is so it reads the file. Okay. You get the discovery request, you upload the discovery request, it takes the information in the file, and then it completes your discovery responses for you. Okay. So you're talking about a process that can take quite a while and doing it in seconds. And the reason why that's not done is ChatGPT came out. And so we actually tabled that. And that's something we've recently come back to, that we want to get that done because I think that there's tools to get it done. But that's to give people an idea, as if you've not quite cracked that code. If you have cracked the code, I'd love to hear about it because it can be done. It's something that we were certain we could do it. It was just a matter of getting that done. But no, there's lots of ways of using AI that's not in an automated manner. I will tell you when I'm drafting things, I use it. So if I'm responding to like, let's say a motion for summary judgment, what I really like, GPT-4 or Gemini, whatever you want to use, I like it to improve my writing. So I'm not talking about the people that you take it and it puts in fake case law. I'm talking about I have drafted a paragraph and the wording's kind of weird. I want it to be improved, so I'll throw it into Chat GPT to have it, write it in so it's more clear, right? So I'll give it, whatever, write this for clarity or write this for persuasiveness, yada yada yada. That is where I can take an emotion for summary judgment. That's something that took me several hours to respond to. I've at least cut that in half. So there's things like that where we've used it. Yeah. We also have it where it'll go and collect weather data for us, like it's like on a slip and fall on a sidewalk. It'll get us that slip and fall or the data based on location, the weather statistics, all that kind of stuff. So there's things like that where we use it that gets it automated for us.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't do much litigation anymore, but occasionally I'll get one in, and I've enjoyed the use case of, you get in a suggestions in support of a summary judgment or something like that, and from the other side, and you upload it and say, read through this and analyze their arguments and give me some ideas about how to rebut these. And, don't make up cases, but just give me ideas about what's wrong with their argument. And it'll give you a bunch of different ideas. Like, hey, this is how you could argue this in opposition, or give me some, maybe I want to use an example by hypothetical, like give me a hypothetical example that makes their position seem absurd, or a public policy argument about why this is a terrible result. And it is so good about just rattling off these laundry. You got to go find the case law to support the position because it'll make those up. But just getting the ideas about how to argue better, I found was super powerful. And picking apart arguments, I thought was really, really fun. A really, really fun use case. What I've been wanting to do is I just obviously have no reason to do it because I don't own an injury firm, but I've been wanting to build a medical chronology generation system where, with the new vector embedding databases that you can do now and the automated workflows that you can do through make.com and Pinecone vector database. And so it's just incredible where you can embed, like you can, let's say I want to upload 1,000. I used to do a lot of medical chronology in my old life. So this is partly why it's an irritation in the back of my mind. But I used to be able to, upload 1,000-page PDF, and now it can chunk that up and analyze each section and summarize the doctor notes in each thing and output them in like a CSV file, or, then ask a question like, hey, when did the patient or our client first start exhibiting symptoms? And then get an answer that is accurate. But getting that.
Well, that's more like Notebook LM. There's all, I don't know if you use Notebook LM, but that's another one that you can use that does a good job of it. And it's not great at doing medical summaries, but asking it specific questions about medical is one of those like, okay, find me the dates of surgery, or find me whenever they got their MRIs, like things like that are very, very helpful. That I actually had it prepare me for an Eighth Circuit oral argument last year, which was pretty cool. It was, and I used ChatGPT for that. I didn't use Notebook LM, but there are things like that that are really, really helpful. I've not found a good way to do the chronologies yet, so I'll have to take the tools you just mentioned and try to create, because it'll get us, I don't know, 2/3 of the way there, but not to where I want it to be.
Yeah. I found that what I've been thinking is that if you were going to do it, it would have to be a hybrid approach where you would have, one system that chunked up the documents, figured out what date it was from and summarized that, and then dropped that into like an Excel sheet, and then did that for each and every document. And then you would have to have your dashboarding interface, whatever you're looking at, if it's a table or Airtable or whatever, then sort those by date. And then all of a sudden now you have like an entry by entry chronology. And then you could feed the whole chronology through the model again and say, all right, now summarize the chronology, which I think gets you closer, because part of the issue is context windows. Like some of these medical records, you might have thousands and thousands of pages, And one thing the models are not that good at yet is keeping all of that in context and remembering, okay, well, here, and this is relevant, this is relevant. They're, when you have that much context, they start to lose specificity a little bit, which is probably a temporary problem. But for today, there are definitely limitations, I think, in the way you approach it.
I want to shift gears real quick. And Tyson, I want to talk about your automated hiring process, because I have heard this before on maximum law stuff, and and it's fantastic. And I want to hear kind of a little bit about that. But before we kind of get into that piece, can you just describe for our listeners what your current tech stack is? Like, I know you use Zoho and you build a lot of stuff out in there. I want to know, I want a little bit behind the scenes of your injury firm. Like, what is your, let's say, top 3 tech pieces, or what are you guys using right now when it comes to your day-to-day operations, and what's really valuable to your firm from a tech standpoint?
Ooh, um, most of our stuff is inside of Zoho. We're still using Ring Central. I'm just kind of thinking this through as I'm talking. So I'm not listing Zoho, or Ring Central is one of my top, but because we were going to be replacing Ring Central with Zoho Voice, because we were waiting on that to get good enough. Because what happens is Zoho will release a new product and it will be okay, right? And then what they'll do is they'll continuously improve it until it's great. And so what we are using within Zoho, because when you sign up for a Zoho One account, you get several softwares, and you essentially use what you need and then you leave the rest. All right. You can even they don't even show up in your account. Like, it's just, it's only the things you need. So I would say that the top things, and it's all going to be within Zoho. Number one, Zoho Analytics. So I've got dashboards on all the key data. That is crucial, because we track, our average fee. We track, our client scores, like how they rate us on our customer service and communication, all that kind of stuff. So that's I'd say Zoho Analytics is absolutely crucial. Zoho, I would say Bigin. So we use Bigin it's BIGIN for anyone that's wondering. That is to track our leads. So our cares team, which is our leads team, they're only in Bigin, right? They're doing all of their lead tracking inside of there. And then projects is what we use for our actual case management. Now, what we've done is we have bolted on. So you can take Zoho Creator, where you can create your own softwares within using their own software. And I can't remember what it's called. There's a specific name that Zoho uses for it. It's not like all the other coding languages. It's a different language, but we have bolted on. And so it looks like it's part of projects, but so like a user couldn't tell that it's something separate, but we built in a separate thing called Zoho Creator, our software. It's essentially our case management system bolted onto projects. So it looks like it's all within projects, but all that stuff we're talking about, where everything for that task is on one screen. We built all that through Zoho Creator, and then that bolted onto Zoho Projects. And so I'd say that those are the top 3, and plus the bonus of Creator, because Creator is really cool, and that's what allows you to take Zoho from good to great. Is taking something like Zoho Creator and then building out the things that you need. But we wouldn't be able to do that without either hiring a company, or what we have is I have an expert, Kashif, that's our CTO inside the firm, that can do that for us.
At that level, and especially in Zoho, I recently learned about kind of the incredible flexibility and power, and it's amazing. To me, it's a little bit like a Frankenstein's monster of all different things kind of assembled together, but it is so powerful when it's built out, if you can get it to that point. We had a guest on recently, Martin Kravchenko, who is a consultant with automation for lawyers, and he specializes, one of the areas he loves to work in is Zoho and Make.com, and he convinced me there's some incredible flexibility you can do there.
Yeah, software people really like Zoho. Like, ask Kelsey, like Kelsey Bratcher, everything that you will ever need for a firm is inside Zoho. It just is. I'm not paid to say that. I don't get any money for that. I wish I did, but I don't. But everything that you truly need, and that's what I was whenever we were looking for a software, that's what we were looking for is, okay, how do we get everything we need within one place? And they do have a bookkeeping option. I've not felt comfortable enough pulling the trigger on it, but it will get to the point where it's just as good as or better than QuickBooks, and we will replace QuickBooks with it. So we currently use QuickBooks, but I can't wait to the day where we can actually replace it. Like I said, we're already replacing our phone system. And that's kind of how things have worked is over time is we've sort of slowly replaced things one by one with the softwares we need through Zoho.
So we were talking about the hiring process. Does Zoho play a part in this automated hiring system, or tell us about this automated hiring process? What does it look like, from your internal side and from this perspective of the applicant?
Yeah. So, Zoho Recruit. So they've got, I'm telling you, they have everything. So, Recruit is where we can manage all of our applicants. So I have all the information. And what we really wanted was one place to quickly analyze the candidate. Okay. So, the process for this, and I'm going to go and try to remember everything. Kristen, who's our office administrator that does the entire hiring process. I have one role in the entire process. It's at the last meeting, and it's a 30-minute video meeting where I get to know the candidate a little bit. But by this point, the candidate has been so vetted that it's really comes down to, do I feel like this person is the right fit? Like that's really what it comes down to. Like they've checked all the boxes. They've met all the qualifications. They're a good candidate. It's just like, do I think this is a person's fit? And so that's my only role in the entire process. But honestly, I don't even need to be involved. But here's what our hiring process is. I'll try to go through it, fairly quickly. So we put our ad up. We do it through Recruit. So I put up our ad through Recruit, and then it puts up on the job boards that we needed to go out to. And then what happens is that they will, if they apply, they'll then they'll get automated emails. So they get automated emails from us, and what we do is we have them fill out an additional application. And that's because we want to be able to vet the candidates based on certain criteria. So it all goes into Recruit, and I can quickly look at it and see if they're a good candidate or not. So yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, kind of a thing. Boom, 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 boom. And this is so Kristen can filter through, because whenever people apply for jobs or you post a job, you can get hundreds of applicants, and that can be crushing to go through. And this allows us to eliminate candidates very, very, very quickly. And if they don't fill out the application, then they obviously self-select out. But the vast majority fill out the application. So fill out the application. They then get an email and each, by the way, I'll go ahead and say this so I don't forget this. During each of these steps, they get an email that says, this is what our process is. So like at the very beginning, here's the process. And then all the subsequent emails, what happens is it says, these are the next steps. Okay. So if you're chosen for this round, these are the next steps. And this is the time frame that you should expect to hear from us. That way that they know, okay, I'm not just sitting around waiting. I know, okay, it's going to take them a week or two to vet these candidates and then get back to me. So they can wait a week or two. So communicating with them regularly. And all that's done through a combination of Zoho Flow, which is similar to Zapier, where it's just things are automated. But so those emails go out, and then they schedule their own phone interview. That phone interview is done if they're then passed on to the next round. And any rejections are automated and they go out. It's all done with a click of a button inside of Creator or Recruit. Then the next thing after that is their first interview. And that's we do these in teams. So there's always two people on that one. So after the first video interview, then there's an assessment that they're given. So they have to go through a list of 4 assessments. After the assessments, they pass that, then they go to a third interview. And then if that's one where, because the reason why we do so many is that you can fake it once or twice. Okay. You can't fake it after a certain amount of time. Okay. You can't fake the funk. So you can get through a lot of interviews by faking it. This prevents that from happening. Then what we do after that is we do reference checks. So we ask them for references, and we ask them to schedule it. So this is a top grading method. And this is one that eliminates a lot of candidates. Getting the references from people, or them failing to get us references, is another thing where because some people just have a problem finding references. And that's not a great sign for you if you can't find a reference. And so, but we get really, really great information, not just about, are they a good candidate or bad candidate, but if they're a good candidate, okay, they like this management style, or they don't like that management style. We get a lot of great feedback and information about that, and that's helpful. So that whenever we dig deeper in that last interview. So that last interview, we asked some pretty, we dig pretty deep with the questions, and we're allowed to delve into those topics. But then also, we can use that to help manage that person. That's something that's pretty helpful. And then the last thing we do is before that last interview, and I'm probably leaving some things out, but is we do a Kolbe assessment where we do now get a Kolbe score, which is pretty important. So that way we can figure out, okay, are they going to be a right fit from that standpoint? But all of this is done automated. By the way, this is all like, click here, schedule a meeting here, do the assessment, click on this button. We ask for a personality test. So, take the personality test, all that's done with clicks of buttons, which is pretty nice for us. And so even the team scheduling, this was one of the most complicated things we needed to set up, because my calendar can be pretty structured so that it's hard to find time, but there is Kasha figured a way to make it all work. And that's kind of cool, where like all of the team scheduling, it's not something where you're sending emails back and forth or making phone calls about things. All that's done with clicks and buttons. So it's helped us move pretty quickly.
Nice. And so there's a lot of different pieces that went into that. It sounds like you've kind of automated the hiring process in much the same way that you might try to automate the client onboarding experience if you're working with an outside customer. And in a way, you're doing a similar thing. You're trying to sell to, like you said, if you're not keeping in touch and doing the things you need to do as the business, they're going to go somewhere else. It's the same kind of concept, or it sounds to me like it's a very similar concept that you've taken that you would with a law practice customer or client.
Absolutely. With that, I mean, that we transition them actually once we do hire them, that actually transitions them over to our actual onboarding. So no, you're 100% right, where it's almost like leads. You treat like leads, and then they turn into actual client. So they're a candidate, and then they become an actual employee. So that's a great way of looking at it. Yeah.
I'm always curious on the personality tests and the assessments. You provide these assessments. They're doing them on their own, right? Do they actually translate when it comes to, you hire this person? Do, the input or the data they provide in those tests actually translate into, functionality in real life? Meaning, are they telling the scores? Are they telling the systems what they think they want to hear? Or are they telling them what they really want to hear? And how does that translate to the actual employee?
So I think that's a good question. With the personality test, I think that they could game it a little bit. With the Kolbe, I don't think so. Kolbe's really hard to, I think, game that system unless you really know what the questions are and what they're looking for. For anyone that's taken it, I don't think it's easy to game. So, and I don't know why you would want to game it, because it's not something that it's like, there's no good Kolbe score and there's no bad Kolbe score. There's just different types of Kolbe scores.
Sure.
And so like we might want someone with me, like someone like that's like my executive assistant, like we probably want them to be like a high fact finder as opposed to like a quick start like I am. So that's why it would not make a whole lot of sense for them to game it. Does it translate? I think it does. I think it does a pretty good job of translating.
We probably need to start transitioning. So we end these things with just a tip or an automation tip or trick or hack or something that can kind of drive new value, or could be a new software, could be anything that you've done or experienced lately that has in the tech space that has really helped you drive your practice.
Yeah, I would just I'm gonna talk about this book again, A World Without Email. Okay, I've mentioned it a lot in the guild, as you probably have heard me say, but I'm sure there are people that are listening to this that have not read it. Read the book. If you like automation, read this book. It's going to open your eyes. It's going to give you actual real data. It's going to give you information that you need to design these systems. I cannot stress it enough. Cal Newport, World Without Email. It's a phenomenal book.
The tip I want to give is if you're not quite at Tyson's level yet, and maybe you're just hiring your first person or your first couple of people, one of the things that I've found helpful is, rather than just getting like cold resumes submitted to you, our system, we've integrated Video Ask, which is just a simple platform that lets you answer questions on video. Like you just ask questions, you can record yourself asking a question, and then they can respond with their answer. So you actually get to see the person and how they respond to questions. And you can create branching questions if you want to. You can get as simple or complicated as you want. But it's been helpful in kind of seeing the person that is applying when we're doing a lot of this remote stuff. Our practice is fully remote. So seeing who they are, what they're all about, and getting them the chance to talk and present themselves, see how they do on camera. And then we can zap and automate that into Slack or wherever, and we can see those applications as they're coming in with a little link to the video, and we can see, hey, this person seems like a normal person, or maybe they're not so normal. And it's been a nice little trick to especially when you run a remote practice, of seeing people's faces when they're giving their applications.
I'm going to go a little more specific on something I was working on this week, which was just playing with Zapier and some Zaps, and their formatting and it's formatting, filtering, and delay. Like they're just adding more options when it comes to Zapier to make things just a lot easier to work with. And I was playing with the Google Sheet and trying to get some dates automated. That it would zap in a case, but then it would tell me a certain date, right? And there's a function in Zapier that was allowing me to basically just add days or add weeks or whatever. So it would automatically populate the case and then the new column of dates for certain things, which I thought was cool. So check it out if you haven't played with that with Zapier. Check it out. All right, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you, Tyson, so much. Before we end, though, where can people that listen to our podcast find more about your injury firm and the Maximum Lawyer that you're involved with?
Yeah, if you want to check out our injury firm, go to completeinjurylaw.com, or if you want to check out the podcast, maximumlawyer.com. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thanks Tyson for joining us. Thanks to all the guests for joining us as well. If you want to continue the conversation, come offline in the Legal Tech Collective Facebook group, where we have conversations about tech and automation all day, every day. Until next time, guys. Thanks for listening.
Thanks again.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yep.